Good morning and welcome to Backyard and Beyond. Well, almost everybody I know wants to hurry up and get a meal on the table. By doing that, lots of us are tempted to go through the drive-in. So when we get out of our vehicle, there the meal is ready to put on the table. But there are some disadvantages to going to the drive-in. In addition to the cost does add up after a bit. And by the time you take that extra little trip to the drive-in, wherever you are from work or whatever chores you're doing, and decide what to order and get it ordered and blah, 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 all that extra time, if you went right home, you probably could have a meal ready in that same amount of time. And one of the ways to do that is to use a pressure cooker, and I'm going to talk more in detail about that. The other way, of course, is to take a few extra minutes in the morning. Yeah, that's sometimes hard to find, but it doesn't take very many minutes. And get out your slow cooker, or most of us just say crock pot. It's kind of like Frigidaire became the refrigerator. But it can be a great meal. It can be all in the pot and ready to go. And I guess another benefit is if you have people eating at different times, well, it can stay hot there on the warm setting and be ready for whenever people get ready to eat. So where is your slow cooker? Is it right ready where you can pull it off the shelf and use it, or do you have to dig in the bottom of the cupboard and behind something else to find it? Likely you're not going to use it if it's down there behind everything else and got to move stuff around. It needs to be kept handy. Now, I think slow cookers are great in the summertime because they don't put as much heat in your kitchen. But in the wintertime, when it's cold, you come home and you have that great odor in your kitchen and you have a hot meal ready. What could be better on a cold winter day than having that food already? Whether it's a roast with the vegetables or whether it's a pot of soup or chili, whatever, it would be great. Just a couple of hints about slow cooking, a couple of things to think about. Another advantage is you hardly ever have to stir. You don't have to take the lid off and stir. In fact, most times it's best not to take the lid off. There are some recipes, of course, that suggest that you add some of the ingredients at the end, and there's always a good reason for that. Herbs are one of the things that some of them, first of all, the flavor cooks out when you're cooking it for 8 hours, or they may change colors or they may change flavors. So many times herbs are added during the last, say, 15 minutes. And if you have a question about which herbs to use and which not to use, probably if you have a recipe book for your slow cooker, it would tell you, or you could go online and check on the herbs to see which ones will work best. Another question sometimes people have is, can they put frozen foods into the slow cooker with good results and with good food safety? Well, a couple of guidelines, and this would be great again in the morning. You're going, oh, what are we going to have to eat tonight? And you forgot to take something out of the freezer. Well, you can put it in the crock pot, but couple things you need to do. Add at least 1 cup of warm or hot liquid before placing the frozen meat in the slow cooker. Do not preheat it. You'd be tempted to say, well, it'll cook faster if I just get it turned up high. No, do not preheat it. And cook recipes containing frozen meats for an additional 4 to 6 hours on low. And that may not, if your recipe starts at 8 hours on low, you're probably not going to want to do that. But on the other hand, occasionally it can be helpful. But on high, it's 2 hours. So that may be the option you want to choose. Because slow cooking frozen foods requires a longer cooking time than fresh foods, it will take longer for that food to come up to a safe internal temperature. It probably is helpful also to brown, if you're doing, for instance, a roast where you've got a big piece of meat. It could be useful to brown that meat first before you put it into the slow cooker, because that will bring the meat up to a higher temperature, and instead of trying to preheat the slow cooker. If you're buying a new one, if you've had one for a long time, you're buying a new one, I don't know about you, but I would not even consider one that does not have the removable stoneware piece in it, so that you can take it out and put it in the dishwasher. It's just, so to me, much more usable if that inside part, the stoneware, is removable and you can just lift it out. Much easier to take care of, whether it's in the dishwasher or in the sink, than having that whole appliance there that you have to handle when you are doing the cleaning. You may not agree with me, but that is certainly my opinion. Now, lots of people have slow cookers, have used them for a long time, are very familiar with them, but not so many people are familiar with pressure cookers. Now, we're not talking about pressure canners, we're talking about pressure cookers. They are two different pieces of equipment to have in your kitchen. Usually a slow cooker is a little bit smaller, but it almost performs miracles. You can cook almost anything in minutes, whether it's a large piece of meat or the whole meal. So, some advantages to a pressure cooker includes, of course, that the food is going to cook much faster. Cooking times can be reduced by about 70%. Yep, 70%. Energy consumption is far less than when boiling, steaming, or oven cooking, and so this helps cut down on your gas or electric bills. Most bacteria and viruses are killed because of the high temperature inside the cooker, if you're concerned about that. And vitamins and minerals are not lost as much due to the little amount of water required to make the steam. And also, foods are not oxidized by air exposure. So those green vegetables like asparagus and broccoli, green beans, retain their bright green colors as well as the vitamins. And talking about vitamins, a bit more information. Of course, how you cook the food does have a big impact on nutrient content. And, microwave ovens do also help to reduce that loss, because usually very little water is used and the cooking time is very much shorter. So we weren't going to talk about microwave ovens, but it is one of the advantages. So just in general, to retain the most nutrients possible, most experts recommend that you use as little water as possible and cook the foods as rapidly as possible. Especially vitamin C, B, and parts of vitamin A are especially affected by heat and air exposure and water. So just reducing, as we said earlier, the amount of water and cooking them faster will help retain those nutrients. The longer the cooking time and the higher the temperature, the more vitamins are lost. And this has been studied a great deal by all kinds of researchers. And up to 97% of certain antioxidant compounds were destroyed by microwaving. There's a disadvantage. While steaming the broccoli caused only 11% loss. So, if you want to keep your family healthy, there's another reason to use a pressure cooker. Now, some people go, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have one of those in my house. So-and-so had an accident, and so on and on. Well, first of all, it may have been a pressure canner, not a pressure cooker. And you do need to, especially if you're not familiar with it, you need to read the guidelines, the rules, so to speak, and follow them completely so that you do come out successfully. One of the things, of course, in a pressure canner, we have to just wait and wait and wait for the steam to get out of the canner, and that sometimes can take a long time. With a pressure cooker, there are ways to release that steam much faster, so you're not waiting around for that steam to cool down so that you can take the lid off. But again, be sure to follow all of those instructions. Now, just like many other things, the pressure cookers have changed a great deal. They are not like the ones perhaps you've seen in the past. There are programmable electric cookers, And that may be a safety point if you're doing a dozen other things while your meal is cooking. Maybe you want to take a look at a programmable electric cooker. And some of them you can brown foods in, you can keep them on warm, all sorts of choices. Of course, they're all going to add a bit to the cost, but take a look at what is possible with a pressure cooker. Last item is, if people are interested in learning more about pressure cookers, I'm interested in having a class so that we all can learn together about this great way of cooking foods. If you're interested, give me a call at KJN and we'll work on getting a class set up so we can all learn best how to use this great piece of equipment. Until next time, here's a thought. We think in generalities, but we live in detail.